Hi everyone, this is Sunette, and in this video I would like to share a moment that often repeats itself here in the environment and area within which I live in South Africa, and how a recurring experience always comes up within me with it. And this is in relation to driving past and through an area that is poverty stricken, and within and during the driving, just by looking outside the window, you see the harsh conditions within which most people in South Africa live. And obviously not only that poverty is existent in South Africa, I mean it's all over the world, but being confronted with it on almost a daily basis, sometimes depending on whether we go out into town, it is quite a different story. And it's also quite fascinating that I've, with traveling, communicated with people about poverty, and they would, for example, say, well, we don't have poverty in this part of the country, or in this area or environment, but with growing up in a country where it's always been present and almost in your face in a way, you see it immediately. And just by showing the individual, hey, but have you really actually noticed it and looked around you? It does exist. They actually started seeing it and noticing the extent thereof. But it was like they were actually completely blinded by the fact that it exists, because they hadn't really noticed it or seen it, or really wanted to notice it or see it. So here in South Africa, it's a different story. You can't ignore it. It is right here, almost right next to you, with you. And since I started walking my process throughout the years, and especially moving to this area where it's really more on a certain road and you always drive past it, it's always there. Initially in the beginning when we first moved here, it was difficult seeing it, and especially like with what happened today, where a very small puppy, is running across the road to nowhere. And you see it with all sorts of animals who are in the surrounding areas, and also with the people. It is challenging, it's difficult, and it's hard driving through it, especially when it in many ways makes you feel so helpless and powerless, when there is a part of you that wants to do more. And so the first few times driving through there and it being there, the first instinct is to want to look away, to want to avoid having to look into what is there, what's actually coming up in your mind already, but you don't want to see it in reality. It's always also the first interesting thing that I noticed, where it was coming up in my mind, but I was trying to avoid it with my physical eyes. Just didn't want to really acknowledge it. In reality, it made me feel better. And when I would see the animals and the people and the children, I'd get emotional. But then eventually, as I was driving through there and I just reacted, I was like, well, what difference is that going to make? And really looking into the real practical difference that any one person can make. It's such a vast problem that's not only in that area, it is a worldwide problem, and the actual source and cause of the problem is a much greater one when having a look at the world system and money system. So it's like sometimes your emotions let you tunnel vision and think, okay, I need to give up everything of myself and my life and type of save this area only. And yes, in terms of many who've invested themselves and their lives into finding solutions for areas, for environments, for societies and countries and even populations who are struggling with survival on a daily basis with barely anything to their disposal. We're definitely working, and it is very encourageable and commendable with those individuals is doing everything of themselves to find solutions for the here and now problems. But we also obviously have to look at long-term sustainable solutions when having a look at the real problem, which is going through back into money, education, culture, politics, society. So many factors actually contribute to it. And within that, what I knew is who I am and my gifts, my skills, my abilities, and how I am dedicated within what I do to facilitate that process of support in individuals, in people. Because that, for me, in my process, is one of the things I've realized is we're not going to change the world unless we change people. Who can really make long-term sustainable solutions or be innovative and creative in solutions to world or global problems. There's more and more such individuals coming out and coming into the world, which is really fascinating to observe in itself. But the point, though, within this all that I wanted to make is I would suggest having a listen to the goat recordings that were done on EQAFE, where the goat came through the portal and, shared with a being exactly this point, where she almost just wanted to give up herself and her whole life and help that area when she had many other skills that could actually make a more long-term, bigger difference and change and impact in people's lives. That, we're all different in what for this life we're going to be dedicated to, what our purpose is, what our gifts are. So do reference those recordings to understand more practical support and assistance on that topic. But the point, though, within this all, I want to bring through for everyone that, when I saw that puppy again run across the road, and, unfortunately, we were not in a position where we could pick it up and take it to the nearest SPCA or vet, because we had other dogs in the car. And already having a puppy in the environment, also the area where it was, you couldn't just stop, and it was because of the safety considerations, and didn't know whether the puppy may have possibly belonged to someone. We just went into like a state of panic. But all in all, going through and processing all of that, what I realized was we tend to always want to look away. And sometimes to this day, there's this part of me that wants to go, no. It's like this inherent point of, I don't want to see it. I can then rather physically avoid it, and the mental memory is easier to suppress than having to face the pain that comes up when you look at it directly. So obviously I realized, well, it's like kind of a self-punishment, wanting to look at it and go into all that emotion the whole time. So when I started working through the emotion and utilizing that moment of looking at what is happening in the world, I am reminded of my purpose, why I'm here, and what I'm set out to do. And I know in time to come, and I also know that so many people in this world have that confidence and are actually out there doing things, not just sitting around hoping and wishing the world will change, or that people will change, or there will be a difference within humanity some way or another. But actually doing something productive, whether it's doing it on the groundwork, actually being in such communities, or being part of organizations, or being part of even companies or institutions, or like what I'm doing, movements in bringing through awareness, education, and a change in the hearts and minds of people. Because truly, if humanity still remains in the same mentality of survival, of fear, of not considering oneself, each other, in an equal and one way, the world is not going to change. So with me, my focus is people, and working with awareness, education, also people finding their purpose, their reason for their skills, their talents. That's also an important thing to find, because you never know how, with discovering that, by knowing yourself better, how you can use a particular career or line of work to contribute to the world, or even countries. I mean, sometimes we tend to want to go to the world, you know, where we don't realize, well, maybe even just start with your community. Like if more people become aware and use their purpose and skills in a community or in a society, in a country, you know, just focus there and start building and creating teams and people, just bringing more education into schools. No, we don't know. I don't know where it might go, but I've been amazed at how creative people can be with the solutions that come up when they just start thinking about how can who I am and what I do contribute in some way or another to a change. You know, we either always focus only too much on ourselves or too much only in our little world. You know, we don't really step out and really see what's going on in our communities, what's going on in our areas, you know, things like that. Can we work on some solutions? What can me as an individual do? You can start with that question. Even if you don't know right now, it's also alright. Give it time. But do look at that dimension of the tendency of wanting to look away and not see what is here, and living a life of ignorance and avoidance and suppression, instead of realizing that that's actually limiting you from yourself and the effect that you really can have in this world, no matter how great or small. You know, if we all maybe stop suppressing and avoiding and looking and understanding what's going on within ourselves, more of an idea or innovation or creativity can come forth that can contribute. Alright everyone, so this is sharing and some dimensions to consider looking at. Alright, thank you very much.